connecting to the goddess Tara, the Bodhisattva of India. She's very popular in the Buddhist and the Taoist tradition. She is the goddess of truth. The divine feminine is all about truth, okay? She's a truth seeker. And she's a destroyer of deception. Kali, let's activate those goddesses within, okay? So just really start to connect to that energy. Hello lovelies, it's Sundar from Substance Over Style and welcome to a new video. Okay, so I'm calling in my guides for this one, just to protect the space. Sorry, I'm just lighting a candle right now. Whenever I do altar work, I like to start by lighting my candle. And I'm going to set the intention that everybody who needs to feel into this message that I'm going to deliver today gets it, and everybody who doesn't is going to be repelled from this video. Okay, so I posted on my stories yesterday, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, I think it was yesterday, about, you know, a little bit about what I want to talk about today. So talking about the Hyros Gamos template and how the distortions of the Hyros Gamos template, which is basically the sacred inner union of masculine and feminine energies within the self, which then connects the self, the body, the human being to the divine, how the targeting of that template has caused a lot of the problems that we see in the world today. So what's happening right now is, you know, I'm sure most of you who are on this channel know that what's happening right now is not about a virus. There's a lot of much bigger forces at play. We're basically involved in a battle of light versus dark, and not a 3D kind of controlled opposition narrative of Republicans versus Democrats or capitalists versus communists, or, you know, New Age people versus Jesus people, or any of those kind of, these are all just controlled opposition narratives that we see just to kind of promote division. Again, black versus white, men versus women. These are all dualistic paradigms that only exist in 3D, but as we're ascending and going through a collective mass consciousness awakening, we will be moving out of those dualistic ideas and more into not so much unity and oneness, because that's going to take a bit more time to get there. And I'm not saying we shouldn't rush that process either, because a lot of people who bought into the new age were all about like oneness and unity, and kind of there were a lot of false light teachings that came out of that, that involved like not respecting your own boundaries, transcending the ego, which is also problematic because your ego is actually very important and protects you as a physical being. So having boundaries and, you know, being embodied is really important. So it's not about being disembodied. So right now we're kind of being lied to massively about what's going on, and our freedoms are being stripped away. There is, you know, the standard Hegelian dialectic narrative that's being played out: problem, reaction, solution. So it was the same thing with 9/11, or, you know, the war on terror. Oh my God, terrorists are coming to get you. And then everybody has like a fear-based reaction. So the solution is we need to go, you know, wage illegal wars in the Middle East and bomb the shit out of sovereign nations. And that was completely wrong. I'm sure everybody who's on this channel knows that that was, you know, crimes against humanity, and those who are guilty of those will be held accountable for that. But we're now seeing the same narrative being played out. The problem this time is, you know, virus, scary virus, oh my God, everybody's scared of this scary virus. Even though if you look at the evidence, you know, on in terms of like the death rate, the survival rate, you know, who is most vulnerable. Not saying that we shouldn't protect those who are vulnerable and we shouldn't social distance, so don't get me wrong about that. But, you know, people being forced to give up their businesses and curtail their freedoms, and I'm not just talking about just freedoms to just like, you know, just do whatever that's going to harm people. I'm always in alignment with universal karmic laws, which is to do the least harm possible to everyone concerned. So by all means, social distance. But, you know, people being forced to give up their businesses and their livelihoods and not be able to feed their families and things like that. You know, it's all a ruse to get people to kind of take these vaccinations. With like digital certificates, which are basically just microchips, and yeah, a whole host of other just tracking and tracing, and just total control of humanity, total enslavement of humanity. That's their intention. Now, I am very careful to not speak things into existence, because I understand that your words are spells, and I want people to be very, very mindful of this, that when you say things like, this is what's happening, they're going to make us take mandatory vaccines, they're going to put microchips in our heads, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, you are speaking that timeline into existence. So you can say this is what they're trying to do, this is what their intention is. Whether it is or it isn't is debatable, because, you know, if you try and question certain MPs and things like that. And by the way, guys, check out a channel called Talk Radio UK. I just posted it in my latest Instagram post. My friend Colin Smith from Lifting the Veil Official, check out his channel as well. It's amazing. Esoteric Anatomy. If you're into yogic sciences, you should check out his channel. He sent it to me because it's just, you know, real journalists, very mainstream, but who are questioning the narrative and who are bringing on loads of different medical experts and MPs, and who are just asking them the real hard questions. So, you know, I watched one today where they had like they cornered Matt Hancock, and they said, are you going to you know, force people to take these vaccines? And he said, no, obviously we're not going to force people to take them, because some people might have medical exemptions and things like that. It all sounds very reasonable, which is great to hear. But she said, you know, he goes, well, we would just hope that enough people would willingly take it. And obviously, if that doesn't happen, then we might need to bring about, you know, certain incentives, which is obviously very dangerous language, because then it implies that, you know, incentives might be like, I think it was an Australian MP who was saying things like, no vaccine, no pay, and things like that, so that they're going to basically manufacture consent. So people need to be really mindful of what's going on, but at the same time stay in your center and consciously create the timeline that you want to experience. So if you don't consent to mandatory vaccines, and I'm not against vaccines, I'm pro-sovereignty. So, oh, who's messaging me? I should have put my phone on plane mode. Anyway, I'm pro-sovereignty. So, you know, if you want to get a vaccine and you're confident that it's safe and, you know, you're aware of the risks and all of that stuff, go for your life. But I find it very concerning that they have basically they have legal immunity should there be any adverse reactions, and they are expecting there to be a lot of adverse reactions because they've rushed the vaccine out in less than a year, and normally it takes sort of 8 to 10 years to properly test a vaccine. So yeah, just be very mindful of what your words are saying, because your words are spells, and you are much more powerful than you, in case you don't know, like, you are magical. Like, you can bring things into manifestation just by your thoughts, your intentions, and your beliefs. So don't speak things into existence that you don't want to see come into manifestation. Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes, and some of them are not the ones that I want to be talking about today. Okay, so what we're seeing right now is the consequences of so many people living in their wounded feminine energy. So this is where I'm talking about the distortions on the hierogamic template. The hierogamic template is when the masculine and the feminine are in perfect balance, and then that's what activates the kundalini in the body, shoots up into the pineal gland, which is where the masculine and feminine, your Ida and Pingala, cross, and you see the truth. And then it goes up, shoots up your crown chakra and connects you to the divine. And then also the divine connects to you. That's the Shakti, the Holy Spirit that comes in and fills your body. So that's the union with God, and that's what the Hieros Gamos is here to do. So that's what divine unions are. So the divine union happens within the self first. So it's not just about, coming into union with a man or a woman. That's a side effect of being in union with yourself and being in union with God and activating your mission, and speaking your truth and all of those other things that come along with that. So with so many people being, and especially those who embody feminine energy, have been heavily, both have been targeted, masculines and feminines have been heavily targeted, but in different ways. So what is the wounded feminine? I talked about it in my video, Wounded Feminine, which you can watch, but I'm just going to summarize it here. So when you're in extreme right brain feminine energy, that's where you get problems like codependency, lack of structure, because obviously structure is masculine. Wounded Feminine has no masculine core. She has no self-leadership, and wounded feminine can occur in a man or a woman or anybody in between or any other agenda. It's not exclusive to women. No self-leadership, because again the masculine leads, so she has no divine masculine core, so she doesn't know which way to go. She's directionless, she can't make decisions. Overly compliant, so that she bends over backwards to authority. So this is how the wounded feminine ends up getting in relationships with narcissists, because the narcissists become the authority. So on a macro level, we see populations who are in wounded feminine energy becoming overly compliant to authority figures such as police and governments, and not having their own sovereignty to be able to discern truth, because the feminine and masculine are out of balance, so they can't think for themselves, basically. Victim consciousness, so they comply, they okay, government says I have to go out of business, I have to put my shop out of business, but how am I going to feed my kids? And then complains about it, when actually you should just be saying, well, I understand that you want to protect people from this virus, but who's going to feed my kids? So, and this is what Aaron Walton has been doing. Those of you who are not following Aaron Walton really need to follow Aaron Walton, because he's such a beautiful example of that divine masculine, which I'll talk about later in the video. Once the feminine is in place, that divine masculine can kind of come through. And he's very calmly spoken. Let me just take off my jumper because I'm getting really warm. Every time they sent police to his tattoo shop to harass him, he just spoke to them very calmly and said, well, I'm working and I stand under common law jurisdiction, so I don't consent to these acts of parliament, because they are statutes, not law, unless given the force of law by consent of the governed, and I don't consent to that. I'm in lawful dissent because we're not being governed properly, and I have 6 children to feed. So I've served you papers which have a list of questions that you can prove to me that the virus has been isolated, that you can prove to me that the PCR tests are accurate, if you can prove to me that I will not be adversely affected by closing my business, my mental, physical, and emotional well-being will not be adversely affected, that I will be financially supported. And they didn't respond to him. So he said, listen, I'm serving you with these papers, you have 7 days to respond. If you don't respond in 7 days, I will take that as tacit agreement that you agree with my terms. And they didn't respond, so they actually sent a group of eventually it came into a showdown where they arrested him. They broke into his shop and they arrested him, which obviously I understand people are afraid of that happening. But they arrested him and then de-arrested him in an hour later, and he's going to be taking them to common law court. So this is what happens when people actually activate balance the masculine and the feminine energies within the self. They actually are able to unblock that throat chakra and speak truth to power very calmly and without fear, because when you connect to the divine, you know that you're not the body. You know that you don't fear death. I mean, he doesn't fear death. I'm sure he didn't fear death anyway, because in the UK, even though our police can be fucked up, they are quite heavily watched, and they're subject to a lot of rules and regulations that they're obliged to follow. Like, they can be protected even if they don't conform to those, like with the case of Joy Gardner, a very, very sad case of a woman who was an illegal immigrant, which I don't agree with because borders are bullshit, who was killed by the police and still hasn't received justice. So, not to go, I understand that people might be uncomfortable with me going into like some of these darker areas, but this is what we're facing right now on the planet. We are facing one of the biggest evils that we've ever, as the average human population, had to come face to face with. But if we're not willing to stand up to these people now, how are you going to be able to stand up to them when you're locked in your house and dependent on state benefits because your business has completely collapsed and you can't make a living? Obviously, I'm not saying that people shouldn't also try and adapt. People definitely should try and adapt. But if that's not an option, I think that lawful dissent is a viable solution under common law as well. And people really need to get up on their common law, and they need to research it. I've been researching it for many years. I'm by no means an expert, even though I first started studying it about 10, 15 years ago. I could have spent more time studying it. But there's much more resources now. Suddenly, all these resources are coming into the public domain for people to research common law, and experts are actually winning certain cases. So I will be sharing more about that on my Insta story. So please follow and check all my updates. Everything that I receive, I will be sharing with you, because that's what time it is. Okay, again, wounded feminine. She needs protection because she cannot protect herself. She needs provision because she has no structure, she has no direction, she has no proper masculine core. Provision is a masculine principle, so she cannot provide for herself. She relies on the masculine to provide for her. So that's what we're seeing on the macro level with this wounded feminine collective energy, where people are going, okay, we'll close down our businesses, but give me state handouts. They want you to be dependent on these state handouts. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take them. And okay, I probably shouldn't use the word handouts, because that money is ours that we pay into the state through the taxation system, which again, I'll talk about the taxation system in another video. Yeah, she's manipulative because she's not in her power. She cannot speak truth to power. She suppresses her own needs, but then she uses manipulation to get them. So, it's much better to just come into your power and activate your divine masculine core and just speak your needs, just like Aaron did when the police officer came to his house. He said, well, I've got 6 children to feed. And he was very reasonable. And the police officer was just like, okay, I'll leave you to it. And she walked away. So, if you speak to reasonable people most of the time, and when you're properly, have these two energies balanced within you, you're not going to get a fight. Of course, if you speak to unreasonable people, then that's a different issue, and I'm going to talk about that later in my later video. Blind belief and naivety. Again, doesn't think for herself. She just believes whatever she's told. And service to others before the self, so she puts herself last. Again, that feeds into the codependency. Okay, and this is a lot of this comes from a lot of ancestral programming from our mothers and our grandmothers, who were just taught to be giving and self-sacrificing and put themselves last. And this is why we have so much fucking ancestral trauma and abuse to clear and cleanse and detox from our womb spaces. And men have it as well. They will have to clear a lot of those false templates as well. And come into union with themselves as well. Okay, so what happens when you've got one person, or you've got one segment of society in wounded feminine energy? Naturally, because everything in the universe is about balance, you're going to have the other person or the other segment of society in toxic masculine. So what is the toxic masculine? Overly controlling, overly dominating, leads others, but not from a heart-centered place, because he hasn't integrated his divine feminine. He doesn't hold his divine feminine in his heart. So he leads in the direction that he wants to go because he's service to self, not others. He doesn't have her best interests at heart. So what are we seeing with order followers, police, governments? They are leading in the direction that serves their interest. You know, they're making it seem like it's for our own good, because remember, that's what narcissists do. That's what the toxic masculine does. Will make it seem like it's for your own good because you've put them on a pedestal, because you put them above you. So again, this whole collectivist idea comes from wounded feminine energy, that it's for the greater good. And we see this a lot with like Eastern cultures. In the East, they're much more collectivist. They're much more about the greater good rather than the individual. And the problem with that, not saying that that is a problem always, but the problem with that is then they become much more easily manipulated because of the naivety and the lack of sovereignty and being able to discern the truth. And that's why they tend to have more authoritarian governments, because that creates the vacuum for the toxic masculine to step up and go, I will lead, I will take care of your needs, I will be the one to protect you and support you and control you and dominate you. So narcissistic, rigidly skeptical, that's the opposite of naivety, okay? Not open-minded to new information. So what happened when the pandemic broke? Oh, super dangerous virus, okay, we have to protect everybody at all costs from this virus, and not listening to anything that conflicted that narrative, that was just like, okay, well, actually it's only certain vulnerable people that are going to be at risk of this virus, so how about we just protect those people and we let everybody else do what they need to do, because, you know, you can't have, nobody's going to survive on a sinking ship, right? But the masculine is very like goal oriented and very like one unidirectional. So when he's imbalanced and in his toxic masculine, he's cannot look at other perspectives at all. That's more feminine. Feminine is much more collaborative and cooperative. She will absorb multiple perspectives and try and do the best for everyone concerned. The imbalanced toxic masculine will not do that. They are very like, this is the narrative, this is what we're going with, this is what science says. So scientism is a trait of the toxic masculine. No, this is science, whereas the imbalanced feminine is like, woo, yeah, spirits and angels, without any like logic and evidence based. So, you know, both of them can swing to the extremes and not be balanced. So you need to be somewhat open-minded, but you also need to be evidence-based. So that's what the hierogamic template is. That's the union, where you're just like, okay, let's look at some multiple perspectives. Okay, so what is the best for all concerned? Great, let's move in this direction. Is this working? No. Okay, now these people are getting hurt. Let's course correct. So that's what the hierogamic template would result in if we were balanced. But it's in order to create that balance, we have to become balanced. You know, as we balance ourselves on a micro level, then we will see society become more balanced as well, because that will be the trend. Yes, also, okay, uses money, this is the wounded masculine, toxic masculine, uses money to control and manipulate his own agenda. So, you know, we see that obviously with toxic masculines when they use wealth to buy women. We also see that on a macro level with governments and elitists and big business using money to, you know, to coerce people into following their own agenda. Okay, so how do we balance these energies? So we need to come into union with the beloved, and that is our inner beloved, you know, that is God or goddess. So if you're a woman, it might be coming into union with your inner divine masculine, depending on where you are. Like if you're in your wounded masculine energy, so many women are, because that's where we've been as a society, very operating out of the yang energy, connecting with your inner goddess, connecting with, you know, the Divine Mother, the Holy Spirit. All of us need to do that. And that's what a lot of what's happening with this lockdown, because it's not just 3D forces that are causing this, it's also much higher forces that are causing all of this to happen. So at the highest level, it's all you, but this is all unfolding for your experience and your expansion. So we're being forced to kind of go within and connect more with the feminine, which is slowing things down and, you know, not hustling and, you know, go and trying to make as much money as possible, because we've got to run on this hamster wheel, because we are basically living under a system of usury, which is a debt slavery system, fiat currency. We got to get rid of all of that, and we are seeing changes that are happening to do with our financial system. You know, I'm not talking about the Great Reset. I do want people to research the Great Reset. I've just started looking into, well, I've been looking into it for a while, but I'm starting to dive into it more now. Be aware of the way that, you know, these bodies and institutions will use very lovely flowery language and very lovely lofty goals, like, you know, protecting the planet and you know, reducing meat consumption and, you know, reducing poverty and They will use all of these different, you know, things that we all want to shoehorn in their agenda. Okay, anything that forces you or asks you to give your crown away to an external authority and give another human being the right to have dominion over you is evil. It's pure evil. I'm not going to mince my words on this anymore, okay? We are sovereign. Nobody has the divine right to rule over us, okay? We are men and women, living men and women of the living soil, okay? Or you can be a transgender person or however you want, but you are a living human being of the living soil, and no man, woman, child, animal, anybody has the right to rule over you. Okay, under common law, which is founded on universal laws, natural meaning nature, NTR, which is the Egyptian word for God. Okay, these laws come from God. Okay, they are immutable like gravity. Okay, yeah, so we have to connect with God. As you connect with your inner feminine, you know, you'll come into balance, you'll come into union. One of the best ways to balance your energies is doing Himalayan Kriya Yogas. Join my membership. It's still priced very affordably. I'm probably going to be increasing the price by the time this video goes up, but it's still very good value. And the reason why I'm increasing the price now going forward is because the previous price, $11.11, you know, we've had people in there for like 3 months already, paying that price every month, and getting 2 lessons a month. So you'll get immediate access to the 5 lessons that are already in there. So you're still getting the same value. Yeah, so it will help to open up your energy channels. It will help you detox your physical and emotional bodies of all the stories, all the fear programs that are keeping you stuck, anything that's blocking you from speaking your truth. We open up the throat portal, we detox the throat chakra, we release grief, heartbreak, we release anything that's, you know, holding you back from your personal sovereignty in the solar plexus. All of that stuff is a really, really powerful system, and I am really honored to bring it to you at this time. So do consider joining that. Okay, so yeah, connecting to the goddess Tara, the Bodhisattva of India. She's very popular in the Buddhist and the Taoist tradition. She is a goddess of truth. The divine feminine is all about truth. Okay, she's a truth seeker. And she's a destroyer of deception, Kali. Let's activate those goddesses within, okay? So just really start to connect to that energy. Get a picture of Green Tara or of Goddess Kali, or of Ishtar. I love Ishtar because she embodies all of those energies. But if I want to be more specific, focusing on, then I'll use the other archetypes. But Ishtar is for me like the umbrella, because she's Aphrodite, she's Venus, she's Kali, she's Isis, she's Green Tara. She has all of those traits already as one goddess. So I call her in all the time. That's why I've taken her name on Instagram. Yeah, so I just want to also answer a question, or expand on a conversation that I was having, or two different conversations I was having with two of my people that I'm connected to on Instagram. So in one of the stories, I was just like, you know, we're going to be unlocking the throat chakra so that you can speak your truth, because that's really needed at this time. We need everybody on board, because I'm not an expert on everything, okay? I can't just be me, and I know it's not just me. There are so many people. I'm connected to so many amazing light warriors and truth seekers, and if you're on this channel, that means you as well, because I know I have a lot of amazing starseeds and angelics who are connected to me and who follow me on Instagram and on YouTube. So it's time now to activate our missions. That's what time it is. There's going to be a mass awakening happening on the winter solstice, December 21. Okay, the energies on this planet are going to, like, this year is supposed to be what the Mayans said 2012 was going to be. 2012 was supposed to be like this shift in consciousness and mass global awakening. Now, a lot of us did start to awaken at that time. I had my Kundalini awakening in 2012, but we're almost like the police before the president. We're just leading the way for the people who are now starting to awaken. And, you know, for me personally, and this is what I'm going to speak on now, somebody contacted me and she said, I just want to get some water. Sorry, I'm just feeling dehydrated. She said, oh, I can't speak my truth because if I do, I get called a conspiracy theorist. And it's just like, firstly, I was just like, come on, like, there is we've got much bigger fish to fry right now than you being called a conspiracy theorist. With all due respect to that girl, get new friends. Like, there is a process that you need to go through. I had to go through it. When you start speaking your truth, that there will be a purging, and certain people will show you who they are. Now, I've learned a lot from dealing with these people. I used to get into a lot of keyboard wars, thinking that it was my job to wake everyone up. It's not your job to wake everyone up. Some people will not wake up, and some people don't want to wake up, and that's their choice and their free will. Okay? This is what I've learned. If they don't want to wake up, they do not have to. Okay, I really used to be of the belief that everybody has to wake up, because the people who choose not to wake up are, you know, ruining it for everyone. Right now we're going through a timeline split. Okay, there are two earths which are emerging. Okay, and the new earth timeline and then the descending timeline, and I've seen it. I walk down the street and, sorry, I'm just purging some burps. I walk down the street sometimes and I see it. I can see the different bands of frequency. The New Earth timeline is way more colourful. It's way brighter. It's way sunnier. It has much more fractals, and things manifest way faster when I'm on that band of frequency. The descending timeline, which I've seen, and it's so tragic to me because I see a lot of homelessness in the descending timeline. And I really, obviously, I want to get as many people as possible onto the New Earth timeline, but it's their choice if they don't want to be. And, you know, I'm not, obviously, I understand that there are various things which are keeping people stuck, and, you know, but this is why you've got to keep sharing the information. It's your moral obligation. If you know certain truths, that you have to share them. But if somebody is resistant and they're calling you a conspiracy theorist and they're being disrespectful, they have chosen their side. So let them go with love, okay? You just respectfully say, okay, listen, try again. If you want to have a respectful discussion about this, I'm willing to do that because I serve truth. I serve Green Tara, right? So if you, and as long as we're both on that same side, that we're getting at the truth, it's not just you fighting me and both of us trying to be right. As long as we're both serving the same master, which is truth, which is God, which is unity consciousness and unconditional love, we can have a respectful conversation. And I'm willing to concede if I'm wrong, as long as you are too. And then you can have a conversation, and then you can both seek greater understanding and expand your consciousness, because they may have a message for you as well. But if they're not being if they're not being respectful, or they're jabbing in, they're giving the pretense of being respectful, but then jabbing in little condescending little jabs at you, and I've, you know, experienced a lot of that, just end the conversation. Just say respectfully, ending the conversation. If they do it repeatedly, I've had people who will literally just pop up to disagree. If they do it repeatedly, I just delete them, and sometimes I block them as well. And I've noticed that some of these people still follow me on Instagram, even though I deleted, unfriended them and blocked them, and told them that I was doing so, and they still fucking lurk, and they still look at what I'm doing and what I'm up to, and I don't know why. It's like they're fascinated by me. And this is what happens when you actually start to step in your power. People will be triggered by you, but they'll also be fascinated by you. But the reason why is because you're a threat to their existence, okay? So not everybody is going to ascend, and not everybody has the same mission template. We all actually have different mission templates, but some people's mission is to experience the descending timeline, and some people's mission is not even to ascend out of this physical body, because some people, and I've talked about them in previous videos, and some people got triggered. If you, like I want to say, okay, if you're watching this video, you are most likely not one of these people, but they are, I call them NPCs. Some people find that term disparaging. You can call them Agent Smiths if you like. Dolores Cannon calls them background people, okay? They come in for this lifetime, and they only come in from the earth, okay? There's just energy from this matrix reality. They're born, they have this lifetime, and when they die, their energy gets recycled back and stays in at this band of frequency, okay? They never ascend outside of it, okay? They haven't had other lifetimes in other star systems. They're not angelics. They don't come from anywhere else. They literally just come from this 3D reality. And so if you threaten this 3D reality, they will fight to defend it. Okay, and that's fine. That's if that's what they want to do, and I understand why, because without this matrix reality, they would actually dissipate. They would come back in another form, because energy can never be, you know, created or destroyed. But they won't come back with the same soul signature that some of us have. That doesn't make us better than them at all. I'm not saying that. We're just operating at a different band of frequency, and you have to be able to like just respect that they're just coming from a different place. They're very locked into this reality, and they're not open to the fact that there's more than just the 5 sense reality, that there's different dimensions and different, you know, realms and things like that. They haven't experienced it, but they can mimic. So it's our job, and this is what I was talking to Wes from the Obsidian Blade. He was wondering, he was just like, how to deal with them. These are the people who, you know, will fight to defend the system and da-da-da. I was just like, ignore them. Just ignore them. Just keep on putting out your message and talking to the people who are waking up right now and who are willing to receive the message. Because when you basically activate the remembrance in those people, you're basically activating the grids that exist all over this planet. And as you activate those grids and those people step into their multidimensional nature, they then create like they raise the frequency of the area around where they are. So let's say, for example, if I put out a message, this video is received by somebody in Canada, and they start to go through an awakening as a result of watching my videos, then their frequency will raise, and they will trigger awakenings in other people as well around them, or they will just lift the frequency of, you know, they'll be on the bus in Canada and they'll lift the frequency there of the people around them. They may not have an awakening, but they might just feel better, you know? So that's what you're doing. And you know, you do need to speak your truth, and you do need to shield yourself very carefully from these people. Some of them are even hosting, you know, entities. They're hosting, watch my video on narcissists. I'm not saying that they're all narcissists at all, but they often will be imbalanced. So they'll either be in wounded feminine or in wounded masculine. We can also be in wounded feminine and wounded masculine, okay? It's nothing different about it. And we can also host entities, but a lot of them are hosting entities, and the entities get really triggered when you start to threaten their reality, because you're threatening their fuel source, because they like to feed on human emotion. So yes, that's that's it. That's all I want to talk about for nearly 40 minutes. Okay, so if you have any questions, ask me in the comment box below. Again, if you want to book a session with me, I'm available for that. You can DM me on Instagram. If you want to suggest a video topic, again, you can do it in the comment box below, or you can do it any which way that you can contact me. You know, you can message me on Instagram and suggest a video topic, because I love answering your questions and serving you all. Okay, I gotta go now. But I will love you and leave you, soul fam, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out, one love.
You're introduced to LSD, and unless you've taken some other drug, like for instance, like marijuana or something, well, you know, it's an altogether new thing, and you actually can have a religious experience